All right, folks, it's 6 o'clock, so we'll get underway. Welcome to the ordinary meeting of Council for the 23rd of July 2025. Nala Kadich Wajak Mort, Kayan Kadak Nijawalilak Buja, Wejinang Wajak Kadijin, we're knitting, Bula, yeah. We acknowledge the Wajak people as the traditional owners of the Greater Fremantle Walyalup area, and we recognise that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important today. The meeting is being recorded tonight and streamed live online. While all care is taken to maintain privacy, visitors in the public gallery and members of the public submitting a question may be captured in the recording. Attendance, apologies, leaves of absence. Councillor Archibald is on a leave of absence. Everyone else is present. Do we have any applications for leave of absence? Nope. Are there any disclosures of interest by members in relation to tonight's agenda? Nope. There are no responses to previous public questions taken on notice. So we'll go to public question time, and I have 3 people listed. If you haven't spoken here before, you've got 3 minutes up at the microphone to ask your question or make your statement. And if it is a question, we'll do our best to get it answered this evening. So the first person is Ian Kerr.
Underway at South Beach. Now, Fremantle is sometimes said to be all plans and no action, which can, of course, be a case of aspirations simply exceeding capability to deliver. However, the increased car parking at South Beach is totally different. It's actions that are in direct conflict with both the words and the spirit of the South Beach Place Plan. The current parking extension appears to have been approved by the administration without reference to council. Only one of the 10 aspirational visitor experiences in the plan even mentions driving there. The plan also states that parklands are a finite asset in Fremantle and active and public transport should be encouraged to reduce car numbers. Now, any transport planner, and I was one for nearly 50 years, knows that if you increase parking provision, more people will drive and there is less incentive to walk, cycle or use public transport. The Fremantle community spent a lot of time and effort developing the South Beach Place Plan, but what have we seen since? We've seen cancellation of the CAT bus despite the plan's support of non-car access. We've seen a concrete change rooms box almost entirely surrounded by concrete, substantially changing the informal feel valued by South Beach users. And now we're faced with the loss of 800 square metres of the South Beach Reserve to yet more bitumen for car parking, as well as, I note, in apparently the absence of proposed Acrod bays between the change rooms and the cafe. Adding parking to the beach side of the railway will, of course, reduce seasonal pressure on Wilson Park, but at the same time it permanently reduces the usable area of the South Beach Reserve itself. Worse, right-angle parking is often dangerous, particularly when backing out of bays, due to poor visibility of oncoming traffic, something that's made worse by the increasing size of SUVs favoured by so many drivers these days. While it offers increased parking capacity, the bay and circulation space dimensions of what is currently planned certainly do not reflect the fact that this is an operating street, not just a car park access way. The southern section of Ocean Road is the only vehicular access to apartments south of the car park. Whilst parkers might be on the lookout for vehicles entering or leaving bays, I'm not so sure about residents of and visitors to the apartments. They are, of course, in the city of Cockburn, but cannot be ignored for that. My plea to Council is not to proceed with the southern works, bearing in mind that the northern ones are already well underway, until there has been an open and transparent reassessment of the proposal in the context of the South Beach Place Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And the next person we have is Nicholas Jansen on Duro Road. Oh, sorry, Ian, what I was going to say is I've got a second question on South Beach car park, so I'm going to get the director to answer them both, if that's all right, following the second question. Sorry, Nick, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. The entirety of Juro Road in South Fremantle, excluding the intersections of South Terrace and Hampton Road, has been in need of urgent and overdue safety upgrades for many years, as I've repeatedly raised with you over the past 18 months. In May of 2023, a serious car accident occurred on Juro Road that, had it happened just minutes later, could have resulted in the death of several children walking home from Beaconsfield Primary School. I sent council photos and videos of that incident. I trust you're also aware of the tragic death of Guillermo Colo on Juro Road in 2022. There have been numerous other incidents and near misses since then. On the 28th of March 2024, following my correspondence, the Mayor's office wrote to me and the City contacted me, confirming that councillors had indeed walked Juro Road and that an upgrade had been planned. The Mayor's office stated that councillors had identified 5 key issues: access, streetscape, on-street parking, speeding and safety of cyclists, motorists and, most importantly, pedestrians like school children at Beaconsfield Primary. In that March 2024 email, 16 months ago, and in follow-up correspondence, the Mayor's office committed to designing a solution for council consideration and community consultation, with planning resources allocated for 24-25 and for works to follow. Yet, I've since been informed by the City that no planning work has indeed been undertaken and that Juro Road is not included in future works, directly contradicting the Mayor's office's assurances. My questions are: what design options for the upgrade of Juro Road, a key gateway to South Beach, which is growing in popularity and may even receive additional car parking, have been developed by the City in the past 16 months? What options, if any, have been presented to Council or the community for consultation? And if none have, how can the community maintain trust in the City and its elected representatives when we are given commitments that are not honoured? If this matter has been deprioritised or forgotten, despite Council's own acknowledgement of its urgency and importance, what could possibly be more important than the safety of children, people, families, beachgoers, tourists walking along what is a very, very busy and important road in our city? I implore you to reconsider. The decisions you make or fail to make have real-world consequences. I urge you all to not wait until another tragedy occurs before acting. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I'll go to the Director Infrastructure on that one.
Thank you, through the Chair. In respect to Juro Road, South Terrace, Hampton Road and Beaconsfield Primary School, there's an enormous amount of work been going on with offices over the last 2 years. Funding was made available by Council last year in the 24-25 budget to allow us to start to do some conceptual designs and start aligning projects around there. We have done that. We've secured additional main roads grant funding, and I think we've now got $800,000 available this financial year to implement the works that we're proposing. And they do cover the things that you talked about, and they are in and focused around Juro Road. So that's Juro Road, crossing points, pedestrian access, resurfacing. So it's a pretty significant project. The designers have been working on developing the concepts, and we're pretty much ready to start to engage with the community. So that's imminent.
No, sorry, we can't enter into discussion back and forth. If you'd like, one of the officers can contact you tomorrow and you can have a follow-up with them. All right, we've got Jason Leonard-Smith on South Beach Car Park.
Thank you all. I'd like to concur with Ian Kerr's comments around the South Beach Car Park and raise a few questions of my own. As a registered architect coming from a design field as well, I wanted to address a few key points as to how this works have begun. The first is notices provided to the public were only received on the 17th of July. I actually live directly across the road from the northern section of these car park works, and I know that those works commenced on the weekend prior to the 17th, so there was zero opportunity for any public members and local residents to know that these works were about to commence, let alone to understand the gamut and extent of the works involved. I've since been advised by council office as well that no parking studies have been completed to actually support these extensions and the vehicle movements that are considered. So my question on that item is, what is being done to actually ascertain the need for this additional parking? I understand that in peak times in the middle of summer, parking as it is at a premium, and Wilson Park is often used as temporary expansion. Certainly the South Beach Place plan talked about the management of Wilson Park and how that can be improved to not have degradation of the landscape and turf in that area. I understand there's been a rotation system set up for the parking through that, but now it appears that the parking is permanently being relocated across to the South Beach car parks with extension of additional bitumen hardscaping. The other item on this is the cafe works, which have been prolonged and ongoing for quite a number of years. Looking at the latest state of the works, we're obviously getting a bit closer and there's a bit of action again happening with the toilet block. My concern is that over the last 2 years and the rest, there have been existing car parking bays that have been permanently blocked, so are already prohibiting parking within the area and creating constriction. Now, looking at the very tiny plan which was issued to everyone and now is only just available online as of yesterday, I can see that there are permanent removal of bays down by the toilet block, with those bays now being relocated to a new area. So again, I ask why those bays are being moved when they exist already, and then why the focus is on removing green space instead of actually completing some proper studies to understand the demand and need for this area, both short term in summer as well as across the full season of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go to the Director of Infrastructure on the two questioners who talked about South Beach.
Thank you, through the chair. So essentially, there are three parking areas that are focus points. The central parking area is an extension of the original project, the landscaping project, and that is about reconfiguring parking to improve ACROD access to the new change facilities. So that's been aligned with the two other car park projects. So it's not perceived as a loss of car park, it's a reconfiguration to better service the facility. With respect to demand and what the place plan looked at, the place plan did consider parking, and we do still prioritise active transport, but we also realise there is increasing demand, and we have been getting a lot of feedback over the last 12 to 18 months about parking, particularly around residents, and looking at the issues that have been arising around Wilson Park, elected to move forward and prioritise additional parking at the north and the south parts of the parking areas. The intent is to deal with the demand. The car park configurations have been looked at, and they are dealing with some existing issues. So in the northern car park, there are some access issues with the dual use path that we wanted to address. There's some flooding and gradient issues. It's poorly marked, so we're improving that car park and extending it probably only by about 11 bays further north. So the movement into the green space is relatively minimal. In the southern section, that really is trying to use what space we can and looking at the verge. It is a restricted area. We've got to think about the intersection, the rail crossing, there are buried services there. It's quite a tight space, but we do have the opportunity to increase that area by 50 6 bays, I think. And what we wanted to do was act. So whilst we acknowledge there's a lot of disruption and we've been doing a lot of works for a period of time, we wanted to try and keep that momentum going while that disruption's there, and include those works which were contemplated during the place plan, just not designed and implemented. So what we've tried to do is take up the gauntlet and get the works done whilst we're on site, with the intention of getting everything done by summer, by the 30th of October.
Can I just follow up? One of the issues that was raised was around timing of notification versus works on site. I'm just wondering if that was possible, that might not have been the car park works.
Yeah, I'd have to check that. As far as I was aware that we did provide notice prior to starting works, but we also know that the gas at ATCO have been doing works there as well. So you're shaking your head, so I'll follow that up and check. But the intention was to obviously notify people before we started work. But I'll take that on board.
Thank you. All right. Goodo. A couple of people have come in later, and I'm not sure if they came in with a view to asking questions or making statements or general interest. But if it's general interest, we will crack on. I haven't heard of any petitions unless there's one lurking around. Deputations and presentations, we have none. Can I have someone move to confirm the minutes of the last meeting? Councillor Thompson, and a seconder for that one, Councillor Lorber. All those in favour? And that looks to be unanimous. Is there any elected member communication? Apart from the Director of Infrastructure who's got his microphone on, I will assume that's a no. All right, that takes us to the report. So the first of these is the adoption of the corporate plan. The recommendation will be on the screen. Do we have a mover for that one? Councillor Thompson, and a seconder, Councillor Moughlin. Any speakers on this one? I had a question, possibly for the CEO or for the manager. One of the things that struck me as I was rereading this was targets, and particularly in relation to employment targets. So we're showing things, for example, like our Indigenous employment and our employment of people with a disability. I know we do have an Indigenous employment target, and it may be that that's not something you'd put in a corporate business plan, but I was kind of wondering where we do put that if it's not in the corporate business plan. So whoever would like to answer that.
Now I get total control through the chair. Clearly you'll notice from the corporate plan that's been presented tonight, we're starting to improve the level of information in the corporate plan, trying to make it a little bit more descriptive about what's going on in the business as much as some of the actions that are aligned to the strategic plan. We'll continue to improve it. We do have a target of doubling the Indigenous population, which I think should make us around 4% for things like that. So I'm happy to start including all those things, but you'll notice it's a continuous improvement from where we started last year, and we'll continue to draw on that.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Yes, you'll recall at our briefing that I mentioned there were a few areas or a few glitches in the plan, and I've spoken to the governance manager to ensure that those administrative corrections can be made. We don't need to change them with a recommendation. They just need to be sorted out. But particularly in the descriptors of the role of elected members, the dot points there are actually a little bit jumbled up. They need to be sorted. But I also thought it was very important, particularly as we go into elections, that the description of the role of councillors is properly outlined, and it's slightly, in the wording as it currently exists, slightly misrepresents what the Act actually requires of us. So I was suggesting that it should read something like elected, so councillors are elected from ward areas to help achieve a diversity of representation reflective of community, but whose role is to make decisions in the interest of the whole community. So that it reads something like that, that is more reflective of what our tasks are, because we are both ward councillors, but we are also having to make decisions for the interest of the whole community. There are also a number of, in the data stuff, so picking up from where the Mayor left off, there's a couple of ones in there which don't quite feel right or perhaps need explanation or clarification of some sort. Things like the tree count, you know, I was a little bit unsure as to what that actually reflected. It talks about trees in streets, parks and, you know, reserves or whatever. It felt like it was probably all the street trees and maybe the conventional parks, but not the bushland areas, which are parks and the like. So it'd be really good information to know. I mean, particularly when we're, you know, we've just passed a budget where next winter we'll be planting 900 trees. Well, if we only have 20,000 street trees, 900 trees is quite a lot. So it puts it into a nice context. There was another one in there that talked about heritage buildings. We're saying we've got 42. Well, I don't know whether that's we have 42 as in the city. I'm assuming that's the case because we have something like, I don't know, I think it's 6,000 listed heritage buildings or something. So just a little bit of clarity. I'm sure that can happen in an administrative sense.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. I mean, I was going to just make a comment as well that I think what's really good about this is, you know, interestingly, if you were a local resident who was really worried about when does Douro Road traffic calming going to take place, you could look in this and see it listed on page 14 as being in 25-26. So the level of transparency and the forward work plan that this starts to give us and give our community, where people are able to say, there it is, excellent, I can stop worrying about that, it seems to have been planned for. Yes, everything won't happen in the first budget year, that's reality. I think everyone probably manages their household budgets like that. It's how we manage a budget. But at least if you can see out 4 years, you can see, yes, in year 2 or year 3, the thing that I feel is really important is going to happen. So I think the level of transparency this affords is a really important thing. And I'm really glad we've got to this point in our corporate planning where we can give this sort of regular reporting to the community. So acknowledge the hard work that the staff have put into getting to this point. All right, if there's no other speakers, I will put this one to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Takes us to Beaconsfield for the road naming. So do we have a mover for this one? Councillor Graham and a seconder, Councillor Kamada. I did flag on this one that I was not really thrilled by the names of the proposed roads here. I didn't move an alt-rec because we were sort of waiting to hear back from Development WA as to how urgent this was. So I was just going to ask the director whether we've got any sense of whether deferring this for 2 weeks potentially would have a negative impact on the project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did try and get in touch with Dev WA again today to get some kind of indication from them, which we haven't had back. In my experience at road naming, including Walyalup Court, the process is long, but in terms of any material effect on project delivery, in my experience, it would be minimal. If negligible, but I do think there would be another cycle that you'd have to go through and go back to the committee to get a new thematic approach.
Can I just ask a follow-on from that? If we were to use names that are already in the road names register, would there need to be another cycle of committees meeting?
I'm afraid I'd have to take that on notice. I think it would be quicker, for sure.
I'll just see the CEO might know the answer to that one.
Through the chair, I tend to concur with the director. It will be quicker, and it's probably just a process of going back to Dev WA and asking if they're prepared to review the names and give them the list that we've got.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Thompson.
I actually do agree. I think it might be worth deferring this because we tend to take these the names that are given to us without much consideration. But when you think about it, we actually have our own registered list of names in our files, And let's face it, we don't get that many opportunities to use those names. So I would prefer to actually see some local, let's say, Aboriginal names in there. And I would also prefer to see some names that are on a register that have been there a long time, that are of local people, that are well worth consideration. So I just think I'm reluctant to just accept the names that are given. And so I would be happy to move a deferral for this.
All right, because we can't speak after a deferral. Anyone else? Councillor Lorber?
Yeah, just a question. So looking back on the timeline of this, and I'm not super excited about any of the names that are here, and I would personally prefer to probably have things that are more, relevant with where we want to go as a community. But on the 17th of February, it says that the applicant submitted the formal road naming application with the theme of knowledge and education, and the city then forwarded that application on to the GNT for comment. And then on the 18th, so the next day, the city then provided some comment and some suggested changes at that point in time in February of 2025. And I'm just wondering if maybe we might have missed the boat on this. I guess my question is, would that have been the time for us to have made those suggestions that we wanted to see, perhaps a different thematic thing through the whole suburb?
I'll get an answer on that from someone. I mean, I'm not clear on. Certainly, this is the first time it's come to council. So I don't know if officers can help us with what the background is.
We'd probably need to come back with that, but this is the first time I think we've been formally asked to approve names. So they've come through to council.
Councillor Graham?
Oh, thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, I'm not all that fussed about this one, but a name is a name. We've got a list of names here that relate to the educational built that was there before that. I think if we go down a path of trying to select another cohort of names, we're just still opening ourselves up for trouble. I mean, I went to South Fremantle High School, which is across the road. I could give you a list of names of famous sports stars and academics that come out of there, but whether everyone would like that, I do not know. And, I don't think it's worth it. You could go through, as Councillor Thompson said, and pick up old local people. Graham family's an old local people. People mostly wouldn't want the Graham name down there. So, I just think if you want to defer it, guys. But, the name's the name, and they become the new norm, Within 24 hours, those names on the street signs, no one's going to give two hoots what they're called. That's the name of it, and that's it.
All right. I guess I just echo Councillor Thompson's point that why have our own road names register and bother putting local people on it if we don't use it when we get a very infrequent chance to name something or be involved in the naming of something. I guess one of the things that was done back in, I think it was 2016 or 17, was we actually went out and got names of women to add to our list, because it turns out that nearly everything we have is named after a bloke. Just run through all the sports fields you can think of in your head and you'll discover that I don't know who any of these people are. Bruce Lee, I mean, I've heard of him, but I don't think it's the one that we're talking about. I just think we get such an infrequent chance to do this. We have a bunch of names that have been sitting on a register for a significant period of time. They're not going to go anywhere unless we get new names, new roads to name, and we don't get them that often. So I will move a deferral, not right now. I'll let Councillor Williamson Wong speak, or hang on, Councillor Thompson's looking at me saying you're speaking now. And no, you're right. You can move a deferral at any time, I think. So Councillor Williamson Wong.
Thanks. A comment/question. If we have this list of road names, then hopefully, this is the comment, next time we get an application with road names come through months before it comes to council, that list will be given. And the question is, what would the list have been given in this instance? Or is there a reason that we have a list that seems to not be going anywhere until it gets to a council decision rather than, you know, if our staff have been liaising with the people, Landgate, that they need to be liaising with, why would they not have brought up the list at that point?
I think it's a reasonable question. I suspect we may not be able to answer it tonight, or do we want to give it a go? Yeah, I think the director whose area this sits in is on leave, so we're going to struggle a bit. But
Look, I think there's two things to it. I'm not sure. I think if you read the background to this, there was some thought gone into how these names were produced, and I think we just took that consultant's report at face value, to be fair. If council have a prerogative that they would like to see in street naming, then it's been discussed now, and we'll start to forward that in future references. It is pretty rare for us to get a subdivision where we put new roads in, of course, so this probably isn't something that's very mature in our thinking, in our process, to be fair.
alrighty, so I would like to move a deferral for this one. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Lang. All those in favour of the deferral? So councillors Lang, Sullivan, Williamson, Wong, Thompson, myself, Lorva, Kamada, Moughlin and Graham. That's surprising. And against? Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't see Councillor Van Dawson's hand up the first time round. Okay, so that's unanimous. So we will see this again probably in a couple of weeks.
Just for the chair, if I can interrupt.
Sure.
Is the reason for the deferral, do you ask Dev WA to consider the names that we currently have on the list were either Indigenous or female names? Is that?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. In my thinking, Councillor Lang, are you comfortable with that as a seconder for the deferral, for them to consider the names that are already in our list for some or all of the proposed?
I think that'll allow it to be a speedier process, that's all.
Yeah, cool. Good. Right, that takes us to the review of the Asset Management Council policy. I have a mover for that one. Councillor Williamson Wong, and seconded by Councillor Moughlin. Did anyone wish to speak to this? No, there were some comments previously. Nope. I'll put it to a vote then. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Does anyone wish to speak on any of the remaining items? Now's your chance. All right. Does someone want to move them on block? Something cheeky going on over there. Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. There are no motions of which previous notice has been given, urgent business, late items or confidential business. So in an unprecedented and un-Fremantle-like way, I will declare the meeting closed at 6:32.